Hello everybody, so today we're going to be going over how to create this rain effect for the environmental effects series. We're going to be going over how to create the textures in Substance and reuse some of our old textures from old tutorials. I really hope you enjoy the video, and please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or any requests. I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody who subscribed and you guys' comments. I really appreciate everything seen from this community. I'm not that great with trying to script my videos, so most of the stuff that you guys see is just me going on the fly. I really appreciate your support, and hopefully I can bring you even more content as time progresses. Thank you so much. Alright then, let's get started. So for this effect, I'm actually going to be making multiple pack textures. So it will be about 3 textures that contain about 6 to 7 different and variation of textures. So let's get started with it. I'm going to use a polygon 2 for my first texture and use a tile generator. So what the tile generator will do, it will allow me to actually tile my polygon into all of these squares. So it would look something like this. If you go under pattern and you go image input, it will take the image input and we'll use that as the tiling. So this doesn't look like ripples. I get that. So for this one, you just go into the polygon and go to the sides and just increase it. You want something like this. And part of the reason that you want something like this is because in Unreal, you can use the sine wave function to create ripples using this as its base animation. And I'll show you how. It's basically depending on the gradient between them. So now that I have my tile generator, right? Here, the best part about it is you can actually create randomization in the positioning. So let's say I want a random position. So you can just use the position random X and Y and you will get something like this. So that being said, as much as I like this and this might work, let me change the scale. So you do random scale and a little bit of luminescence random. So what this would do is actually have them spawn in different time. So based off of its gradient, if it's white, it will spawn first. If it's dark, it'll spawn later. So what that would do is it gives it that randomization and variation. So now that I have that, let me do one more thing. So there is a scale random. And I'm just gonna make it a bit smaller because I want to see more variation in this. So now that I have it this way, let me go to the amount. I'm gonna actually set it to 15 because I want to have more in there. And as a piece of advice, do save your raw files because you might actually come back and change things in here. That's what I usually do. Okay. Well, this seems to be fine for now. Okay. So now that I've done this, I'm actually gonna copy this 2 more times. Because what I want to do is have one texture that packs 3 different channels that have 3 different positionings. So now that I've had this way, I'm going to go back into the amount and set this to, let's say, 8 by 8. So my variation will be something like this. But what I want to do is increase the size a tad bit. And then decrease the, the scale randomizer or scale random seed is a good way to actually even get more in there. Okay, I think that should be fine. Then going into the third one and the last one, I'm just going to set this to 4. So now I have different sizes for my texture. So let's pack these together. If you press tab and do RGB merge, you will get this node, and you can just pack your data in here. Again, you can set the alpha into just a constant color or just leave it be. I'm just going to leave it this way. So now that we're done with this one, I'm going to make a copy of it. And this would be my second texture. The only difference is I want it to be a flat color. So under the gradient, you just slide that back all the way. And this will be my time mask. So I'm going to multiply these two together. What you want to do is have the red channels for each, or for whatever you're trying to do, to match. Okay, so that's done. Let's do our third texture. So for this one, you will need a Gaussian spots, and this will allow you to do like a shape, a droplet shape or a drop shape. When, like, for example, when you see rain hitting the window and you see those drops on the window, this is what we're gonna do. So for this one, you need a histogram scan. And if you just change the positioning a little bit and the contrast, you'll see what I mean. Let's do a bit on the scale. I think this should be fine. Now let's do a normal. And as you can see, you'll have a little bit of droplets. So what I want to do here is exactly the same thing here, but inside a normal. So I'm going to split the normal into two channels, and then add 2 more textures in there. So let's do a RGB split, and let's do RGB merge. So I'm merging my first 2 channels, and then for my second channel, I'm just gonna make a copy of this and do a little bit of a change. Okay. And now here, I'm gonna do a flood to fill, or flood fill. Actually, no. Okay. Let's do levels first. Okay, yep. So what I wanted to do is have the levels cranked down all the way. Nice. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. So now I want this to be a grayscale. So let's do flood to fill grayscale random. So what this will do, it'll give me the same type of result here, which will allow me to have these droplets spawn randomly. So this one will go to B, and then for the alpha, I'm just going to use the levels as the alpha for this. And this is what we're going to have. Again, save these just in case that you're going to come back and change them and so on. So let's save our textures. Let's call this tx underscore shape underscore ripples. And the same thing for this, but for this one, underscore 2. And for the last one, let's call it tx underscore drops. All right, now that our textures are done, let's go into Unreal. All right, now that we're in Unreal, let's import our textures. So let's see, we have drops, shapes, and the ripples. Okay, sounds good. Save all of this. Okay, so now that we have our textures in, let's create the materials for it. So for this one, let's see, I'm going to create a material function. And part of the reason I wanted to create a material function is because I'm going to add these to different shaders, and I don't really want a lot of noodles on there. So to do that, right click and go to material function and call this material function underscore rain underscore ripples. So this is kind of, I wouldn't say easy, but it's fairly simple. So what I want to do is, for example, to explain this in a better way, part of the reason I added my textures in a packed way is because I wanted to have variation while having a bit of control over them. So what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, I want to change the timing, right? So to do that, I'm going to do a time node, a add, and a frac. So frac. So what this will do is will give me a result like this. So my time, my add-in time wouldn't really change any of this, but if you add a frac to it, you'll see that it starts to spawn this in a random pattern. It's not random, kinda, because it uses the gradient of your texture to spawn it based off of its saturation. So we have a frac. So for this one, to actually create the shape and everything in there, we usually add it and then multiply it. So first I'm going to subtract because I want my background in there. Next, I want to do an add. So what I'm adding with is the red channel from the other texture. So now I have my gradient in there too. So you'll see that we might actually start getting issues here. And part of the reason is because some of these are overlapping, and I might actually go back to Substance and fix that. So for now, I'm just going to build this shader and see how it looked like before deciding to change the texture or not. So I'm going to multiply it, then do a sine wave to see how it will look like. Alright, that doesn't seem to be bad. Like, my issue is with these right here, right now. Okay, so for now that's fine. Let's multiply them. with the red channel again. And for that result, you will see this. So just multiplying it with its gradient shape again will give it the mask where it's not given this result in the background. So I'm using both of them as a mask and a ripple for this. Okay, let's see. Next, I'm gonna clamp this. Clamp. And do a power. Okay, so for this, part of the reason I set a power node is I can control how faint my ripples are or how strong they are. Okay, so let's do something like 2 for now. And I'm just gonna change my sign. I think 0.5 should be fine for the sign for now. Let's do 1.5 for this for now. Okay. So if I copy this and then add my next channel to this, which is going to be the green one, then we go into the add again and we multiply it back in and we add these two. Just change this into 3 instead. When you view it, you'll see now you'll have a different layer inside here. So now that's the green channel layer. And if you copy it and paste it again and use the blue channel, you will have a complex layering of ripples. And then I add this back in here. Again, this is not perfect. You can always experiment with and get things going, try new things and so on. But this is what I got for this type of technique for this one. Okay. Yeah, this is bothering me. I'm actually going to go back and change it in a second. And I'll show you what I'm going to do for it also. Yeah, this is bothering me a sec. Okay, that's fine for now. Okay, the next thing, what I want to do is actually create a normal map from height. A normal map from height chaos. So what this will do is kind of convert these in like the gradient into a normal using the height base or bias. That's how you pronounce it. So if I view this, this is the result that I'm going to get. And what this will do, it will allow me to actually add this into a normal inside the material. So because this is a material function, there are some things I want to do here to make it into an adjustable one. So first thing is going to be my textures, which I'm going to do a UV texture. Sorry, not UV texture. Text coordinates, and multiply that with a input function. Input. And you'll only get these if you're doing it inside a material function. So I'm gonna take one more tether line. I actually don't know. Okay, and set it into the coordinates because you want this to scale up with your textures, because if you don't do that, it'll cause a lot of issues later on. Let's see, let's do an input function and do the heights for this one. Height. And for this one over here, let's set it to a UV. Okay, now that this is done, we just add it to the upper result and save it. So now that this is done, let's add it to this material. So I've gone ahead and set the roughness for these to 0 to just make it look like have that shiny wet look. And if you're encountering a set material attribute and you want to add a input to it, you just do add element and then you pick from your elements here. So I have my normals here, so let's add this in. Okay, seeing that I only have 2 inputs, I'm just gonna set them as a parameter. So this will be UV and this will be height. Let's set this 0.5 and this to 1. So now, as you can see, you have ripples on your surfaces. So if I save this and go to the material instance, ooh, that's too much. You'll see that's the result. If I look at it here, oh, that's way too big. Okay, I can just go to the UV, set it to 20, 30, yeah, 50 is fine. Actually, let's see it in full view. I think it's because it's a little bit dark right now. You don't see like if there is repeating patterns and so on. But looks good for now. I'm not gonna fix it in Substance until I see a problem with this for now, so I'll keep it as is. Alright, now that we've set up the ripples, let's do the water drops. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna make a material, call it post-process effect underscore drops. Okay, so now let's bring in our second texture. And let's do kind of the same way that we did the other one. So you're gonna have the time node, a multiply, and a vector. Then you're gonna have a subtract. So now it would look something like this. By adding the frac in again, this is the result. Oh, oops. And that's what we want to see from this one. So because we have our mask in the alpha, we're just gonna multiply it with that. Looking at it, you'll have something like this. If you would like to multiply this in with another number and try to, let's say for example, make it stronger or weaker, it's up to you. I'm not going to do that for this one, but I'm going to show you. It's just this. So it's up to you if you want to set this up or not. I'm just going to do it for this one. Just going to leave it this way. And for this, seeing that this actually is going to be on the entire screen, I kind of don't want that. So to combat that, I'm going to make a mask, a text coordinates that basically uses it as a mask, and it's inverted, so you would have the drops only on the sides and the middle would be just empty. So to do that, it's a text coordinate with a mask, component mask. So the shortcuts for these are U, left click, and Shift C for the mask. So I'm gonna remove the G from the first one and the R from the second one, and I'm gonna do a 1 minus for both of them, and then multiply it. So because your mask has the takes from the text coordinate. So basically the text coordinate is an RGB channel, I would say, that has a U and V in it. So imagine these two combined into a green and red channel. So if you want to actually create a mask for the screen, for example, you'd need to have all of them mixed together. So what I mean by that is, as you can see here, these two are the opposites. It's basically an inversion. The red mask will be an inversion here. So if you multiply the inversion by the original one, this is the effect that you're gonna get. So you'll have two different masks on top of each other. And if you do the same for this is what you're gonna have. Now, if you multiply these two together, you will have this effect. So now this is kind of the opposite of what I want, so I'm just gonna invert it using a 1 minus. But because the inversion is a bit too much, too little, sorry, I'm gonna do a power node and just see the sweet spot for this. Okay, 50 shouldn't be that bad. Let's try 100. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, so let's look at it, how it looks together. Usually you won't really see it until it's on screen. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is, well, for the texture anyway, is append vector. And this is going to be for the R and G channel, because I really don't have anything that I want to do with this. It's just basically they are there, and I want to add them in here to give that water look, because it takes the normals and it shows more of a refraction type effect. So I'm going to multiply these again, and that's the result that you'll have. I might need to change the texture a little bit, depends, but we'll see. Okay, now let's multiply it. And here I'm just gonna call this str for strength underscore drops. So here I can have as much strength in it as I want, but for this one I'm just gonna do like 0.23 for now. And the last thing that I want to do is have a UV text coordinates added together, and do a scene texture. Add these together and do a UV, post process. Switch this to a post process input, and that's the effect that you're gonna get. If you notice the sides of my viewport, Yeah, it looks a bit too much. So if you want to fix that, I'm going to go back into here and actually fix it with the... I think the levels are a bit much, to be honest. No. Yeah, I think this is a bit much. So let me see if I can just do this so it matches with it. Okay, yeah, let's try this one. I just wanted to have variation in the other one and maybe something different, but if it doesn't change that, then there's no point. Okay, I'm gonna re-import it. Perfect. It's basically the side, the mask looks better because now it's just contained to the actual droplets. Okay. So now that this is done, what we can do is add a post process in here. So let's do that. Post process volume. And under the post process, when you select it, click type in unbound in your search. So this will allow it to activate no matter where it is in the world. So it's infinitely extended. And you want to have your material asset, and it should be this. So now, as you can, I'm not sure if you can tell, but there is a little bit of refraction / droplets on my screen. So, all right, now that we have our materials for the drops and ripples, let's do our particle system. Okay, so for the particle system, I'm going to create multiple it'll be multiple emitters, but for this one, it would be a bit different. So what I mean by that is let's choose hanging particles, finish, and let's do an agrisystem underscore rain. Okay, so having the rain particles to be what you want it to look like, it's more of an angular type rain. So what I mean by that is if you add this into your scene and let's say it starts spawning from here, you kind of don't want it to go straight down. You want it to be at an angular drop. Part of the reason that is just to adhere to the wind or anything that you have in the scene that would affect the rain. So let's do that first. So if you add a velocity, and let's say we do -500 with 200 in the x-axis. So now you'll see that is kind of working. Let's delete the wind force and delete the aerodynamic drag. And this is what we're going to get for now. Right now it looks like a bit of snow, but we'll fix that in a second. Okay, so, all right, let's do this then. Next thing, let's add a collision. And as you can see now, this has collision, but I do kind of want it to kill the particles upon its collision. So to do that, you would do kill particles, and the under here where the arrow down is, type in has collided. So what this would do is when the particles collide, it will kill it, but you won't have this function or statement unless you add a collision module. So if you turn this off, here you have an issue with the kill particles. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Perfect. All right. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is shape location. Let's try 1000 by 1000. Because here's the thing, I'm making this rain for just this area, nothing other than that. Let's see. Let's try 1500. Okay. All right, let's increase the velocity speed scale. Let's do 8. That's way too fast because now we can't even see them. Let's do 5. Okay. You know what? Let's leave it on 5 for now. Let me add more particles. Let's do 200. And let's now change the shape. So, when you look at rain, technically rain particles are just a blob of water. But because of the motion blur of them falling, our eyes perceive them as streaks. Granted, because of gravity, there is a little bit of a, what's it called? It looks like a tear shape sometimes, but that's the reason for the gravity. So, if you add motion blur plus that effect, you'll find that you're getting a streak type effect. But for this one, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use squash and stretch. So, under the random rotation, you just do that as unset. Same thing for the UV sprite. Then under the size, you change that into non-uniform. So that way you can control the particles. So let's do 50 on the X and 5 on this one. Okay. So part of the reason that this looks a bit wrong because it's not velocity aligned. So to fix that, go to the sprite renderer under alignment, velocity aligned, and when you look at it, now it looks like rain, technically. Okay. So now let's actually see this when we play. Did I just crash? Oh, no. Okay. So this looks all right for now, but let's start adding more elements in here. So let's see. Okay. So part of the reason I have this here is because I'm going back and forth between each other. Let's see. So this should be fine for now. Let me go ahead and create the material for the rain. Okay, so under materials, set material underscore rain. Let me just fix this. Rain. Okay. Okay, so I have a second screen, so that's why. Okay, now that fixed it. Okay. So, for this one, part of the reason I wanted to set it up in another material is because I want to add a little bit of refraction, which this will give me a tint of having the water look, basically. So, to do that, let's see, particle color with a . with a radial gradient exponential. 2 multiplies, and also the shortcut for multiplies is if you hold M and left click, you'll get a multiply. So what you want to do is 1 exponential at A, 1 in B. Actually, this doesn't matter as long as you have alpha in 1 and RGB in 1. So next you want to have a vector to control the refraction. And if you go into the refraction, you'll see that it's disabled. Now, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see that it is here. Refraction method, and set that to pixel normal offset. Now, part of the reason it's still not showing up is because of the material itself. So if we set that to a translucent and two-sided, now as you can see, we have our refraction. So let's add the one with the RGB into the emissive color and the other one into the opacity. Now as you can see, you kind of do have the refraction, but what I want to do is add the gradient exponential to the normal, so it will take the normal's shape. The exponential shape. And as far as controlling the amount, I'm just gonna set it to 99, maybe 0.8. Yeah, this looks fine. Okay, now if we save this and we go in and we add it to here. Okay, that doesn't seem to be bad. Let's do one thing. The more we set the color down, the more we have refraction in there. So I do want to have a little bit in there, but also I do want refraction. So if I play this and okay, let's set this to 1. This is at 0. It's a bit too much at 0. So let's do 0.2. I think 0.2 looks fine. Yeah, seems alright. Okay. Alright, so we're done with this part as far as the hanging particles. So the next step is to do a impact on collision. So what I wanted to do with that one is I wanted to copy this, make another copy of it, turn this one off, and then make this into a catalyst to spawning particles as splashes. So add a new emitter, and let's do a omnidirectional burst. I think that should be fine. Okay, so for this one, what you're gonna do is remove the burst, because that's not what's gonna spawn this splashes. It's actually the event generator themselves. So go to the stage and set a event handler, and under the event source or the source, you'll see a collision event, and you'll see hanging particles 001, which is this one. And if you choose to change the naming for this or something, you need to actually come back here and reassign it. So now we added that in there. Let's see how it looks. Okay, it's not working yet. Let's do it for spawn particles. Set them to 1. This is the amount of particles that will be spawned per collision. Next, let's add a collision receive event, and now it should spawn. Okay, So part of the reason it spawned once is because the emitter state, self once, just set that to infinite. Now every time it will spawn splashes. Yay! So same as the other one, you want to set these to kill. So you do collision. I really need to learn how to spell better or feel better for my keyboard. You need to do collision and kill particles with the has collided condition. And now if you save this, this is what we will get. So, as much as fun as this will be, these are too many particles. So to fix that, I am just gonna do one thing, which is kill the velocity, kill the gravity, kill the drag. I'm just gonna leave the scale for this one, the size. I will be using it. This should be fine too. Okay, so for the texture for this one, I'm actually gonna be manipulating an old texture that I made for my modes tutorial. And this is going to be fairly simple. I'm not actually going to even do anything to the texture itself. I'm just going to change some of its dimensions. So what I mean by that is if you make a new layer and go back to your original texture layer, hold Control and Shift and just drag it. You're technically just changing the perspective of it and just squishing it at the bottom. So now you have yourself a splash texture. So it's as easy as that. Let's save this, merge layers, and let's save a copy to the rain splash. Save that, and going back into here, file import and rain splash. So the material for this is super easy. Just right click, material, _splash. And what you want to do is just import your material, your texture, a particle color, and 2 multiplies. So RGB to RGB and RGB into A. So now the only thing that I need to do is add 1 into opacity and 1 to emissive, change this into translucent, and that's my texture for the splash. Okay, so save this, coming back into here, let's see, they are all there. Okay, so let's add that in there. Material and splash. Okay, so for now you're kind of not going to see anything because this is a bit too small for it. So let's change this to uniform, increase the size. Oh, wow. Okay, let's kill the rotation. So now they are spawning, but the issue is they're also spawning at the bottom of it. So to fix that, go to your sprite renderer, and under the pivot UV space, just set that to 0.9. So now they will spawn at the top. Okay. They are a bit too big, so let's decrease the size for now. Okay, now that they're there, let's change the curve for this to like 5. And let's change the size, the scale sprite size, into something other than this. Okay, that's not right. So let's set it up into the opposite of this. Hmm. Okay. Maybe they are too big. Let's check. They're really small. Okay. So let me change one thing right now, which is the random uniform. Oh, to non-random uniform. Set this to 30. And this one is to 20. Let's go back into the scale. Maybe it's the opposite. And I set it up wrong. Technically, that's not supposed to be right. It's supposed to be the other way. It spawns big and... maybe not. Okay, let's change this first and see if that changes anything. So if I set this to 1, okay, they do spawn, all of them. If I set it back to 0.8, it does grow. Okay, so it is correct. It's just that it's taking less time for it to grow. So let's do this. Make sure that your key data for this one is set to 1, and for it to go its to maximum size to be 0.2. So technically, let's try from 0.5. Oh, right. The time. Apologies. Should have realized that the timing for it is also really high. And that's why it's taken so long to get to its original, or like its maximum size. So, perfect. Now we can actually see what's going on. So if I just go back to my, let's see, where is it? Scale size. And actually change it. I'm just going to zero out these for now. Okay. I'm just going to zero everything out and do it again. So for the first one, it starts at 0 and 0. For the second one, it goes to 1 and 1. Okay. So let's do 1 and 0.5. Even though they are spawning, I do want them to grow in size, but let's try it from 1 and above. Okay, that works then. Okay, so instead of 0, let's start it off from 1. So if you're going into this as, okay, it would be from 1 and 1 for the first keyframe, and the second keyframe it can be 1 or 2, and 2 and 2 should be good. Yep. But now let's change this to be 20 and this to be 10. Okay, that looks right. Okay, let's change the color. Just add it a bit in there. Let's save this. I'm just gonna mess with the size just a bit. Okay, perfect. So if you set the sprite size to 40 and 20, it's just basically going to make it look like a bit of a crown when they hit, and that's what you're looking for in this scenario. So now that this is done for the impact, let's move on to the one that we actually hit. So what I'm going to do with this is actually change it into a GPU particle, and I'm going to add a bounding box to it first, and next I'm going to add a view cycler. So this is something new that got introduced in 5.3 and it basically allows your particles to cycle through the camera view from outside to inside, like recycling the view in and out. So it allows anything that's outside the camera to be inside the camera view. So what that will do, it will create even more particle rain with less cost, if I understood how that works correctly. So if I play this and look up, you see like looks like there are more rain than there actually is, and that's what the recycle viewer does. So to see the actual rain count and everything in there, you can just go into the particle, initialize particle, and change the alpha of it. This is basically depending on your preference. I usually like it to be a bit more on the lower side, but yeah, this is how you set up a rain effect with ripples, particles, and post-process. Thank you so much for watching.